free to always join us here, noon Central, every day, Monday through Friday. Love to have you along and involved in the conversation. Today's going to be an interesting conversation. I just actually met today's guest, Chad Robichaux, this week, and I will say this, and I think he'll understand when I say this. But you meet Chad, and you're like, great guy, solid guy. You would never actually know that Chad is not just a former police officer, but a Force Recon Marine veteran. And for those of you who know, you know. For those of us who are not that familiar, you don't want to meet him on the battlefield. Okay. Also an MMA fighter, a Jiu-jitsu black belt. So completely a guy you want on your side. And he's got a really interesting story. So many great things going on. Hasn't always been easy, and he'll talk about that some. But Chad's got a new book out. It's called An Unfair Advantage. Here you can see it at christianbook.com, a better place to buy your books, by the way. And they did not pay me to say that. An Unfair Advantage, Victory in the Midst of Battle is Chad's latest book. And so we're going to talk about fighting, both in the cage and in the field and in your life. Chad, great to have you here on Life Today Live.
Thanks for having me on.
So now, I mentioned the jiu-jitsu. You just had a tournament just in the last couple of weeks, right?
I did. I'm testing my boundaries to see when I'm too old to do this.
Well,
yeah, I went out and did a international open for IBJJF. IBJJF is the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation, which is the kind of major governing body for the sport I'm in. And went out and they did the international open this weekend. Texas has been like the place to do tournaments because it used to be California, but California's closed, so they've chosen Texas to do most of these big, major worldwide tournaments. And so I jumped in and two divisions, a gi, which is like the uniform, so you can get grips on each other, and no gi, which is just shorts and like a rash guard shirt.
yeah.
And,
How'd you do?
I took gold in gi, and I won silver in no gi. So ran into got him Trent in Nogi in the end. There's a freight train of a guy and stopped me from getting double gold. But I had a good time, good run. It was really impressive. I was really just kind of impressed with myself and pretty happy because the two guys that made it, most of the guys that would compete in my division are full-time competitors. That's what they do for a living. And I run the ministry and Mighty Oaks Foundation help veterans. And so the two guys that made it in the finals, the gi was the guy that I went against was a geologist, and then me, a ministry leader. So awesome. We're out of all the full-time athletes, we're the two guys that made it to the finals and got gold and silver.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks for the heads up that all you guys are holding your tournaments here in Texas. I'll make sure I don't pick a bar fight.
Yes, there's some tough guys from all over the world that are cruising around, especially Dallas areas where they've been doing them.
That's awesome. When was the last time you did a cage fight?
2013. I did 20 professional fights. 18-2 was my record. And 2010 we started Mighty Oaks, and it was a decision I had to make. And the fights I did just required so much selfish time to prepare for these fights to win them because of the level of competition I was at. I had to decide where I was going to invest my time, and it came to the point to where I knew Mighty Oaks was a place that God was calling me to invest my time, and it was time for me to hang out my gloves. And besides, I can do jiu-jitsu at this age, but MMA is a little tougher to do the camps and stuff. And I got a lot of miles in my body. I have a lot of injuries. So the MMA camps, cutting to 20, 25 pounds of weight to make weight for the fights. It was the right time. And I was really happy. 18-2 was my record. I won a world title. I was, hit a top 10 in the world ranking. And in my last two fights were two young up-and-coming studs, and I beat them, and it was great time to go out on. It's always good to leave on some wins.
It's I think for the average person, we look out there at any kind of fighting, and cage fighting just seems to be the most brutal. Of all the things that you've done, is that the roughest?
No, people say that, people look at MMA and think that's the hardest type of fighting and the most brutal in your body. But I look at boxing, and think, you got two guys that are hardest punchers in the world, standing in a ring, toe to toe with each other. Their wrists are wrapped like rams, and they just punch each other in the face for 12 rounds. And they can't grab each other, they can't defend, they can't pull each other to the ground. And it's that's brutal. And then if you get knocked down or TKO'd, they let them get back up and give them time to recover and do it again 3 times in a round. And it's just, in MMA, you can grab each other, you can close the distance with each other. And if you get, your bell rung like that and get TKO'd, they're going to stop the match. So to me, it feels safer.
You realize how that sounds to the rest of us? Because all of us are going, why in the world did you? I mean, I don't want to get punched in the face, and I don't want somebody to throw me to the ground. Seriously, why would you get in there and fight like that?
I have no aspirations stuff. I mean, I've seen a lot of fighting in my life and been involved in a lot of fighting, from sports to real life fighting, fist fights, gun fights, knife fights. There's nothing fun about fighting. And so I don't equate mixed martial arts or sport of that to fighting. To me, it's a sport. And it's something that I started when I was 5 years old. And I've always trained the hardest I could. And then I want to test myself in competition. And so I never aspired to be like a fighter. I want to be an MMA fighter when I grew up. I was just always progressively competed. Even at this point right now, when I'm competing in jiu-jitsu tournaments, I train really hard. It's a very serious hobby for me. It's very healthy for my lifestyle to do jiu-jitsu, and I teach it as well. And so I want to go test myself and see where I'm at.
Yeah.
And so it's always for me, and it's not the same for everyone, but for me, it's always been in a very positive, sporting way. And I mean, even last weekend when I was competing in the International Open, we're sitting in the bullpen waiting to go, and me and all my competitors, we've been around for a long time, so everybody knows each other. We're joking and thought who's gonna win and stuff like that. It's still a lot of fun, and the camaraderie and personality amongst the fellow competitors is pretty high. It's just a really good environment, good attitude.
Yeah.
I think I've seen people bicker and fight or have bad blood towards each other more in golf than I did in MMA, and it's just because there's so much mutual respect towards one another.
Yeah. No, I see that. And what's funny is in hockey, fights break out on the ice, but yet you'll see those guys hanging out and congratulating each other after. It's just most people
say in hockey I'm sorry, I was saying hockey I went to a hockey game and a hockey game broke out or something.
A fight broke out. No, I went to a fight and a hockky break.
Hockey game broke out. Yeah, there you
go. Yeah, not so much anymore. But if you ever want to go to a game, let me know. I get that intellectually. I still don't want to do it, but I have tons of respect for that. Tons of respect. Now, this is the interesting thing, because most people don't have to choose between cage fighting and ministry.
Yeah.
But I'll show the website here. This is the Mighty Oaks Foundation, and mightyoaksprograms.org, and I'll throw that URL in the chat here in a second. But you made that decision to go from competitive fighting, I'll say it that way, to fighting for people's marriages, to fighting for their sanity, and fighting a different kind of battle. What made you get into that? Because I know that's where you're spending the bulk of your time, and that's where you're really changing lives.
Military is a big part of my family. My father was a Marine, infantryman in Vietnam. I was a Force Recon Marine, Special Operations in the Marine Corps. I had 8 deployments to Afghanistan. And both my sons are Marines. One of them is going to his job training right now. The other one is just finishing up 6 years as an Anglo Marine, and went to Afghanistan as well. So military is a big part of my family. And if you don't know, currently after 20 years of war, over 20 veterans are taking their lives every day. We don't even know what the number is right now, because in the last year in COVID, the active duty suicide rate has increased 35%. Suicide hotline is up 1,000%. So these guys are really struggling, and I could really empathize with that, because when I came home from my 8th deployment to Afghanistan, I faced head on what many of these warriors face. I came home, I was diagnosed with PTSD, very angry, very frustrated, anxiety, depression, hopelessness. And you know, my wife and I faced a near divorce, and I had a very real battle with suicide, becoming one of those veteran suicide statistics at a moment where I, you know, found myself at rock bottom in my life, and and trying to make a decision whether I want to live or die. And there's so many things played a role in me getting well. Mainly my wife challenging me. I had the mentorship of this man, Steve Toth, who stepped in my life and mentored me. But of all those things, the most profound thing that happened for me was the restoration of my faith through a relationship with Christ. And then learning, being mentored and discipled, and living my life by the way it was intended to live. And really just intentionally calibrating my life to make choices and decisions in response to what happened to me in the way the Bible would teach me how to live my life. And what I found through that very intentional way of living was restoration. I found hope again, and I found ultimately what I always sought and desired, and that's purpose. And a purpose manifested in God putting a deep burden on my heart to share what I discovered in my own journey with others. And you know, it's been 10 years now since we started Mighty Oaks Foundation, and God's just been incredible at creating opportunity and opening doors for us, giving us access to serve the warriors on the active duty and veteran community and spouses, as well as first responders. But we have a resiliency program. I've spoken to over 150,000 active duty troops around the world. I've written 6 books now, given away 100,000 copies of my books. We have a recovery program, which we run it's a 1 week long in peer-to-peer, faith-based peer-to-peer mentorship program. In his 6 days, very intensive 6 days. Again, a very peer-to-peer level with people who've been there before. We take them we have 5 different ranches around the country, and we bring active duty veterans, spouses, first responders there. And we spend that week with them. And we do that 30 times per year. And we've had 4,000 graduates from that program. But now 10 years later, we're doing about 1,000 per year. We do it all paid for. We pay for their travel, their flights, everything's paid for. Because we have.
Yeah, how do you do that? I know that's expensive.
We have it costs about $2,500 per warrior to bring it through, but we have such an incredible, grateful nation who loves our military, and so we raise about $3.5 million a year.
Wow.
Through donations, through individuals that gives, and most of the gifts aren't large gifts. We have we have a few large givers, but for the most part, it's just everyday people that just love their warriors and donating to Mighty Oaks so we can scholarship these guys into the program. And it's been just incredible. And in addition to that, we worked on a lot of policy stuff. I've worked, with President Trump administration. I was appointed as the chairman of the White House Veterans Coalition, faith-based programs. We got a lot of policy change in place to bring faith-based solutions back into the VA and DoD.
Wow.
So that has a lot of success in those fronts. So amazing organization. God really blessed me with the opportunity to lead it, and I pinch myself every morning with the people I get to work with. Incredible people.
Are you going to be able to continue that under the current administration, you think?
Unfortunately, I don't know where the current administration will go with that. Indications are they're going to go away from that because I can't say that they're intentionally going away from faith programs, but it seems like everything Trump is being erased and reversed. And so I thought the coalition was going to be gone. From best of my knowledge, the coalition still exists. I stepped down so I could. I want to focus my efforts where they count. So I stepped down as the chairman, and I'm just going to be focusing my efforts moving forward with Mighty Oaks.
You're by no means you're not one to back down. So with or without the government stamp, you're going to be doing it.
We started this under President Obama's administration.
Okay.
And we thrived, and God blessed us and gave us provisions to do the work that we do under President Obama's administration. We were very blessed to work with President Trump. He was very open. I got to work with him. I met him in person 3 times. Got to work with him directly and have him impact executive orders and policy change. But now we're under a different president and a different administration, and that doesn't mean the work has to change. We still have to do that work. God still called me to do that work, regardless of who's president.
Well, so tell us what you're seeing. Tell us a guy that comes in. A couple that comes in and goes to one of your events. What are they? I know it's different case to case, but kind of typically, what are some of the common things they're going through that they need some help to walk through, and then where do you take them? What's the other side of it look like?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing we deal with is either the suicide ideations or the marital. The divorce rate on Camp Pillen, for example, is 80% combat veterans, and so these families are breaking apart at astronomical rates. And so those are the biggest things we deal with. Anxiety, depression, which leads to suicide ideations, which leads to 20 plus suicides every single day. And again, we don't even know what the number is right now, but it's one too many, whatever it is. And so that's the biggest things we deal with. And what we believe are the solutions to all those things, because it's one thing to talk about all these problems, but we have to really talk about the solution. We believe the solution to all these things is people understanding who they are, who they were created to be, and simply making a decision to align their lives with the lives they were created to live. We believe that, and this is one of the things I personally discovered, is of all the bad things that happen to me and can happen to us in our life, the reason for me that I ended up at the lowest point in my life sitting in the closet, looking at my family pictures with a pistol in my hand, trying to take my life. The reason I ended up there wasn't because of what happened to me. It was because of the way I responded to what happened to me, the choices I made in response to what happened to me. And I came in a moment through entering my relationship with Christ to realize that I never lost control, the ability to choose. The power of choice is the one thing that can't be taken away from us. And when I realized I could choose differently, I needed a set of principles in which to choose from. And the Bible just so happens to have the right set of principles in which to choose from. And it's again, I couldn't change what happened to me. Those things happened to me. I lost buddies in combat. I lost, buried, 15 buddies since the war on terror started. I couldn't change the childhood that I had, all these bad things that happened to me, but I could change the way I responded to them, and I did. And as cliche as it may sound, it was like this realization to me that I didn't have to let my past define my future. I could choose a different future moving forward, and doing that and being intentional about making choices that were biblically sound. It led me to restoration. It led me to have hope again. It led me to ultimately live out the purpose in which God created me. And that's what seems like a simple process is obviously a complicated process to have people go through. That's essentially what we do at Mighty Oaks. We bring them there. We let the guys have the opportunity to see that they're not alone by demonstrating vulnerability and transparency through our own stories, tell them where we've been and the path that we're on and where we're headed. So we show them that it's okay to talk about their stories, and we get them to really reflect on where they are now, how they got there, and what they need to do to move forward. We essentially have them accept responsibility. We live in kind of a victim culture right now, where everybody blames everyone for and everything for their circumstances. We essentially want them to take responsibility for their situation, regardless if something bad was done to them. They can't change that, but they can change how to respond to it moving forward. So we get them back to take responsibility and make the right choices moving forward. And then we show them where those choices are in the Bible. And then most of the guys that come to us are not Christians. We have a lot of atheists and agnostics and other faiths that come to us.
Yeah.
But we have them contrast their life, the life they're living and the mess that they're in, to the life we believe they're created to live. And they come to their own conclusions and realize, hey, maybe this is a good path for me to take.
Yeah.
And they take the same journey I did.
And I want to ask you about that, but I want to tell people real quick that we are talking to Chad Robichaux, and he and his wife Kathy founded the Mighty Oaks Foundation. This is a website. You can find it at Mighty Oaks Programs, plural, mightyoaksprograms.org. And my chat's not really functioning properly, but I'll try to get that in the chat for those streams. So you referenced the fact that you do get people of different faiths, and I know it's one thing for somebody to say, hey, Chad, I'm glad that Christianity thing worked for you. And then, for you to say that, yeah, and I think it'll work for you too. I also know that people seeking help, they can find help in different places, especially when you put God's principles in place, even if you don't know they're His. They still work. But how important do you think it is that Christ be the center point of anyone's recovery?
I think is the most important thing. And the reason why is because you're right. There are other ways to get better. Buddhism, for example. I mean, Buddhism, I know a lot of people that struggling and they get into Buddhism and meditation and they like feel better. But we're not talking about short-term change. People aren't really seeking short-term change. We're talking about things that sustain. And I've been around this a long time now. And I've seen a lot of people come out of the fog and feel better by doing other things. But those things never sustain. A relationship with Christ and living the life he created us to live sustains, not only in this life, but eternal. And so it's very difficult sometimes to get people to understand that, especially when people are come with such a wall up against Christ. However, there's a few simple phrases like, well, how that's working out for you. And, when you're having a real, genuine conversation, and people, the reason you're even having a conversation is because they're still searching for hope. They would not, if their things were working out well, they probably wouldn't be in a program like ours. If what they've been doing is working for them, they probably wouldn't be in a program like ours. So we're kind of at an advantage to that. We have a saying at Mighty Oaks Foundation when the guys come through, and this kind of comes from my own experience. This was challenged to me. If what you're doing isn't working, then why not try something different, right? What do you have to lose? And that's often what, the simple key phrase that we are able to get guys to try a relationship with Christ with is, if what you're doing is working, and you probably tried everything, medication, counseling, VA programs, for me, professional success, all these things that I tried, some good, some bad, but they don't typically change our situations. Then why not try something different? Why not give God a chance? What do you have to lose? And guys give it a chance. We have about 50% of the people show up that would claim to be Christians, and about 90% leave claiming to be Christians. So,
Wow.
so
What all did you try?
well, I was on the medication, so I hated the medication. I went through tons of programs, and none of those programs really worked. They only actually made me angrier, more frustrated. And I tried professional success and achievement. During the time we talked about, the highlight of my MMA career, winning world titles and getting highly ranked and winning these big fights and getting all the attention and financial success. I would have thought those things would have solved my problems, but none of those things did any of that. Underneath that fake facade of success was still a very broken person who was desperate for hope and help, to the point to where I found myself, at a rock bottom, not wanting to live anymore and wanting to take my life, coming to this conclusion that I was a problem for my family and that maybe my family would be sad about me, but they would be better off. A similar hopeless thought finds a home in the hearts of 20 plus veterans today and so many other ones in our community that we feel like our loved ones would be sad without us, but they'd be better off. And believing that lie and making the ultimate, very permanent decision, the temporary problems. And so none of those things worked for me. So when I was presented with the gospel, I wasn't like, oh, this is it, this is the answer. I was at a point to where I was like, well, nothing else worked. What do I have to lose? And I'm kind of the person that if I'm going to try something, I'll authentically try it. And so I wasn't sold. I'm a skeptic. I'm a skeptic by nature. I didn't even really know if I believed. And so I did a lot of probing and studying, and which led me to study of apologetics, Bodhi Bakum, people like that. And really understanding why I was going to go down this path.
And how long has that been?
Well, I'm very long now convinced that with that absolute certainty that not only Christ is real, but the Bible is the truth. Not because of anything other than, or not because of the study of apologetics, because I've witnessed real life 2-day miracles through seeing people's lives transformed in a way that is just no other way to describe them, miraculous. And so because of that, I feel like I got to kind of cheat it. The apologetics thing is one thing, but then I kind of cheat it behind looking behind the veil and seeing God actually show up and deliver people from something that no other thing in this world could deliver them from. And so because of that, I'm convinced at this point. But nonetheless, I still want to be able to study apologetics and really understand, why I just have an infatuation with it. Why I believe in
Sure.
The historical concept of studying the Gospels, and I'm writing another book right now, really about the life of Jesus, and so many pieces are left out, not just by culture and the world, but by the church has really missed telling the world who Jesus really was and who he was not. We get a kind of a caricature, a false projection of who Jesus was. So it takes away our ability to align our lives to his.
So, but just to press you a little bit, and I think you'll allow this and appreciate it. But how do you know this isn't just another thing you're trying? How do you know that it's got the permanence? The peace you've got, the purpose, the sense of purpose. How do you know it's not just another thing?
Yeah, I mean, my life was radically transformed. I mean, I believe I'm the Bible says in Revelations that we'll be saved by the blood of the Lamb and the power of their testimony. I believe I'm a living testimony of the restorative power of Christ. I mean, overnight I became a different person. My heart was changed. And Ezekiel, it says, he'll take my heart of stone and turn it into a heart of flesh. Like I was a person who had no empathy for anyone, no compassion for anyone. I would be screaming at my wife and children, and my wife's crying and my children are crying, and I'm like, what's wrong with me? I don't even feel bad. Like I should feel like, as a man, as a husband, as a father, I should feel bad because I'm hurting my people that I do care about, and that I don't feel anything. And in a moment that was restored, and I cry like that movies about golden retrievers, I just have this soft, compassionate heart now. I believe that to be a miraculous thing in my life. I can't explain it to anybody that doesn't know me, feels what I feel, but I believe that to be a complete miracle in my life, to take this very hard, jaded person who just had no empathy and compassion. So everything I do now has every motivation in my life, every action, every ounce of second that I have in my day goes towards just a deep, burning desire to serve people. I can't explain it other than a miraculous transformation of my heart from Christ.
And that's explanation enough, man. That's what I wanted people to hear, because we can see it. Before I let you go, I do want to hit the book real quick. What will people get when they pick up An Unfair Advantage?
Well, I mean, you don't have to be, a military special forces guy or a combat veteran or MMA fighter to get anything out of the book. I mean, you just have to have lived the battles of life. And I think everyone has lived the battles of life, especially if you're 2020, 2021, you've lived the battles of life. And, but whatever battles we face in life, if you are doing it in a relationship with Christ, you're going to have an unfair advantage to those battles, to overcoming those battles. And that's what the book's really about. I share some of my stories from Afghanistan, from combat, from MMA, and some of the hardships I faced on the battlefield, in the cage, but also in the battlefields of life. I share all those stories, but I also share the biblical truths that help push me forward to ultimately find victory in my life, and what I'm still using today. And so a lot of great biblical stories and great context that can be for anyone, especially if you have someone in your life that you're really having a hard time understanding. They're struggling and you don't understand them. Even if you're not struggling yourself, it could be a great book for that. And there's also a 10-week study in the back, 10-week men's study in the back that has online resources for it as well. It's all included.
Awesome, man. Chad, this has flown by, half hour flown by, because it's just great to see what God's done in your life, doing in your life, and doing in the lives of so many people that you reach. I just appreciate everything you're doing, and I'll encourage people to support. I'll show the website here as we go out, and if you need help, reach out to Chad. So Chad, thank you again.
Thanks for having me on.
No, yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for all you guys who've been watching, and please do share this. And if you haven't followed or subscribed at Life Today TV, do that now. And then, of course, check out Chad's book. Buy it for yourself, maybe buy it for someone. And if you want to support the foundation, or if you need some help, do reach out. We'll see you again next week here on Life Today Live. Appreciate all you guys being with me every day.
believing God for favor in my life.